Do your best and have fun. That's it. That's all they're going to hear from you. And like you were saying, on the car ride home, there's no long conversations. If they want to engage in conversation about games, go for it. If they want to talk about what they did or didn't do, go for it. But I think the biggest thing is for any parent, just be their biggest fan.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Next Level Dad Fitness Podcast. Today we have yet another great episode lined up for you. We have a special guest today, a guy that I've worked with for 14 years. He's been with the Culver City Fire Department for, I think, 20?
19.
All right. 19, almost 20. Our senior engineer, the one and only Tim Carr. Tim, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thank you for having me. Senior makes me old, right?
Man, that's one of the things that we can touch on for sure, because we're not that old, man, but we are considered the old guys where we work. And that happened very, very quickly. I'm sure you can attest to that.
Yeah, I agree. I felt like I was young, and then the next day I was old. It happened really quick.
Happens quick, man. You know, we go from the young guy. I remember, and for anybody who doesn't know, we both are active members in the same fire department in Culver City, California, on the west side of LA. And when I started, I was the youngest guy on our department. And I was 26 years old, and it was an older department for sure. And then through the years and through all of the changes and all of the transitions, and boom, now I'm not so young, man. And we're getting guys that are 19, 20 years old, and it's just a whole different ball game out there. And I'm sure you've seen it, you know, and it's it happens very, very quickly.
Yeah, I felt, I'll be 49 this year, and I felt 49 wasn't that old in the fire service when I got hired. There was a lot of guys that were hired in the late 70s and early 80s that were 52, 53, 54.
Yeah.
And now I'm 48, and I truly am one of the oldest guys on the department, which is crazy to me. Because like you said, we got a lot of young 20s and mid 20s.
Yeah.
We really do.
Yeah. So for the people who don't know Tim, who is Mr. Tim Carr?
I am a dad of 3 kids. I'm a husband to a wife named Beth, who's a 25-year teacher. My 3 kids are 18, 16, and 15, all in high school, 2 of them driving, which is kind of nice. And been with Culver City for 19 years. I'm an engineer, so I get to drive people around at work. And been coaching for about 25 years, multiple sports, but specifically baseball. And pretty simply, that's it. That's me.
Nice, man. Yeah. Kind of the touch on the topic that, you know, we're coming in, starting as the young guys and seeing all of the changes. You touched on that 20 years on. What is some of the biggest things that you've seen? What are the changes that you've seen in the fire service, in our fire department, and just overall that, you know, back in whatever 2006 and 7 to now, what when the world has changed for Tim Carr?
It's a lot of things have changed, but a lot of things stay the same. And you and I have talked about the train keeps rolling along. You're off for a couple weeks with vacation, come back, train keeps rolling. You're off for a year with an injury, train keeps rolling. When you retire, it's not stopping. But I think a couple things have changed from my perspective. When my grandpa worked for the fire department, and back in his day, he got out of the military and was just trying to find a job. He was a meat packer down in LA, and then he got on the fire department and did that for 30 years. A lot of the guys that my dad grew up with down in the valley, roughneck kind of guys, ended up going to work for the studios or fire, PD, or education. And then, when I got hired, there was still a group of guys that got hired in the late 70s and early 80s that were construction guys, mechanics, electricians, plumbers, Didn't really go to school for anything. Like maybe went to a JC and bumped around a little bit and got on the fire department because that's kind of what their friends were doing. And then it kind of transitioned into, when I was starting to go through it, you started to see where paramedic stuff started to come into play a lot of. That's a benefit to get hired. I went to my father-in-law who worked for the fire department, and the first thing he said to me was, "Go learn construction," because we're losing that in the fire service. So I went and basically did demo for a guy for a year and tore apart bathrooms, but you learn a lot.
Yeah.
And I think there's value in that. And I think that is not as much of a thing anymore. I think the plan is more set in place now where you graduate from high school, you go to your local school, it has fire science, you take your classes, you do your EMT, and you do your fire academy, and then you go to paramedic school, and then at 22 years old, you're ready. And I don't know if that's the case really. I do feel like we're missing a little bit of the mechanical aptitude and the street smarts and the things that
Yeah.
I knew I struggled. In my early 20s. I was delivering medical records, barely being able to eat, two Carl's Jr.'s chicken sandwiches that were $4. There was a
Yeah.
money struggle there, and I was just trying to get by. And I think kids are kind of have a better plan now. Maybe is probably the way to put it. Education is definitely more important in the fire service than it was 20, 30 years ago, which I think there are good parts to that. I understand the reasoning, but I also think that a class doesn't teach you how to do the job. I feel like we're putting a lot of emphasis on classes and classes and classes, but on the other side of it, sometimes I'd rather have a guy that's been on for 15, 20, 25 years, might not have all the classes, but they've seen it all. I think that mental Rolodex of being on that call or being in that situation is, in my opinion, more important than the education piece. That's the one biggest thing I think I've seen is just the emphasis on education and that plan of what do you do at 18? What do you do at 22 and how that goes?
Yeah, man. A lot of great points there. And one point I want to touch on is Carl's Jr. So, growing up, we had a Carl's Jr. down the street, and I would eat four famous stars, I remember, with,
Oh yeah.
with $4.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
were just big old juicy burgers. And dude, I would crush those, man. So,
Yeah,
oh man, I
I
love them.
remember I was delivering medical records for an MRI center, and I would drive up and down Ventura Boulevard in the Valley, and I would end my day. My lunch was at Carl's Jr. in the Woodland Hills, and it was $2 for two spicy chicken sandwiches, and it was
Oh,
great,
God.
great deal. It's a
Oh
great
my
deal.
gosh, man. I remember scrounging up dimes and nickels and quarters, and I would pay, with change. And it was
Oh
like,
yeah.
dude, I just got myself four giant burgers.
Yep. Yep. Just trying to get by.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh man. Um, so yeah, there is definitely a emphasis on the education and also the trades because once we get into the job, once we're doing the job, it's almost like expected that you know how to, turn a wrench or use a chainsaw or use these tools. We expect it, but sometimes we're seeing that it's not always an easy thing for some people to pick up because kind of they've been going to school their whole lives and they check the boxes off. So we expect it, but the hiring process and the people behind the scenes, they're not really expecting it. So there's kind of like expectations are a little bit different for people on the floor than for people that are doing the hiring in the HR world. Um, so I
I
remember,
I agree. I agree completely. It's something that you're probably going to use every day.
yeah,
And I can't blame the folks that we're hiring because it isn't being asked of them, right?
yeah,
Um, but the reality is, you might need it day one,
yeah,
and I think there's, I could almost say every single day at work, there's something you do building construction wise or mechanical or electrical electronics with a car there's so many different avenues to go down. And I'm by no means an electrician or a master mechanic or a carpenter, but I learned a basis of how to get by and how to understand things. And there's guys we have that are fortunate, we have that are, you know, experts at that. Um,
Yeah.
but it's, I think 25, 30 years ago, you had 75 to 80% of your firefighters were experts at it. Now you're looking at 20 to 30%.
Yeah. And I also think that there's like a streamline, a knowledge that people know, okay, do this, this, and this, and you'll get hired very early. And
Oh
what are
yeah.
those things? Get your EMT, get a little fire science AA, and then go to medic school. And then you get
Hmm.
that paramedic card, and then the whole world opens up to you. You now can work basically wherever you want to work with that paramedic card, where that wasn't the cheat code, I guess, that you can refer back 30 plus years. So definitely a streamline, and like, hey, if you just focus up for 2 to 3 years, boom, you're there.
Yep.
Whereas guys in the past were, okay, I am going to go into the trades because my dad or my family has a business, and I'm going to go work this job for 10 years, 6, 7 years, whatever. You build those skills, and then you go and, like, I kind of like that fireman thing. And you talk to a fireman, and yeah, it's a great job. And then you kind of transition into that. But now it's a little more, hey, the information's out there. Just do this and focus, and you'll get on the job. So definitely the education and all that stuff is out there for guys to pick up. Now, are you going to get it done? Who knows? Going to medic school isn't the easiest thing either. I mean, maybe for a studious person, but I definitely was not the best student. So
Yeah, you can go back to, I mean, even I remember taking classes at the local junior college here, and uh, you'd start out with 30 kids in a class, you ended up with 16, and
mhm.
that was 20 plus years ago. I'm sure it's still the same. You go to junior college and you have same scenario, would be my guess.
Yeah,
Like, how bad do you want it?
yeah. Now, being a firefighter and having this amount of experience under your belt, what has that taught you about being a dad? Because you got three kiddos. You got three. Now, when I came on, they were young. Now your kiddos are all in high school.
They're old,
But
older.
and what has that taught you? How has that helped you?
I think I was pretty, I would say, OCD and very regimented in my day early on in my career. Even at home a little bit, like there were things I remember being frustrated with certain things about. It didn't look this way, it wasn't that way, it didn't get clean this way. And I think as you have the fire service equal and with kids, you learn patience. I think one really important thing is you learn to understand you don't know what all these folks are going through. And just like we could go on any given day on a patient who's going through something, anxiety or whatever it is. Your kids also have those same things. The same things are going on in their mind, based on what's important to them in their life. And it's something that might not seem important to me as an older person to my 12-year-old or 10-year-old or 14 or whatever age they were at. That might be the biggest thing in their world.
Yeah.
And I think we see that in the fire service where we get called out for things that it might not be the biggest thing in the world. And early on, I was like, why are we going on this? But then you start to realize you have a little bit of sympathy and compassion for the person to go, well, they're in their head, it's the biggest thing to them.
Yeah.
I think that goes hand in hand with being a parent. Like you have to have that understanding of it's big to them right now, and that's
Yeah.
why it matters. I think that's the biggest thing, really.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's the delicacy of life, because we go on these calls where unfortunately we do see death and we do see suffering. It hits you differently, I think, as a dad when you see that stuff. I can remember going on calls before I had kids. Yes, they were impactful, and yes, they sparked up emotions, but for me now as a dad of three, if I see something that people are suffering, I just got this like soft spot that I didn't have before I had kids. And I've talked about this call before, but it was maybe 2016, 2015. We had a young 3 year old that was beaten by his stepdad, beaten to death. And we show up, or not even stepdad, it was a boyfriend of the mom. And we show up, and I had a 3 year old at the time. My oldest was 3 years old. And we go, and unfortunately, the kiddo died. And gosh, that affected me so much because I was a dad now. It
Mhm.
was totally, totally different for me. And I think that as a firefighter, that's one of the biggest things is having that compassion and having that empathy, and also seeing like, dude, these are just regular people looking at that mom just suffer uh in the hospital, and all of that stuff is just so impactful. So it really hits you a little bit different. A lot of these calls and these scenarios that we encounter now, at least for me, they hit a little bit different. And like you touched on, the empathy and compassion for people is a little bit deeper. So, gosh, it's not always the easiest things to deal with, but we talk about them at work. We talking about amongst each other, and that's definitely helpful to release that stuff because guys know what we're going through.
Yeah, I agree. There's calls in my head that I'll never forget. It just, it's the part of this job, and it's unfortunate. And I could get emotional about it if you really get into it. If you get in your head a
Yeah.
little bit. Um, I think one thing that I've really tried to do, and we had a call the other day with it came out with a young child, and one of my family, a cousin in our family, he said early on in his career, make sure if there's a kid call that you're the one who takes care of it if your kid's not that age. And I kind of was like, what do you mean? He said, well, and his kids were older at the time, and he said they had a similar call where his kids are older, but the call came in with like a 2 year old, and there was two guys on the crew who had 2 year old kids, and he
Mm,
said, I got it, I
mm,
got it. And he just a little
yeah.
bit of a reminder of like if it's really bad and you got guys on your crew that are their kids are that age and you can handle what needs to be handled and your kids aren't that age, it's just sometimes that same age really can affect people. So I've always kind of had that in the back of my head. If it's really bad and it's going to be what it's going to be, step up and step into that role, so the guys with kids that age don't have to deal with it. I always kind of
Yeah.
take that advice.
Man, that's a great point because on this particular call, we had a senior guy, Dave Gardner. He was the engineer working with us on that call, and Dave was so helpful during those times because he saw it in me. He knew my story. He
Yeah.
knew, hey, this guy who just took this kiddo to the hospital and is going through all these emotions has a kid the same age. And having those senior guys that maybe he knew what he was doing, or maybe it was just a senior like moment that, hey, this is the time where I show my leadership. And he did, man. He helped me through that, and I've always been thankful for him for that. Dude, we even cried together, dude. It was impactful. And to have guys to understand that is super, super helpful. And that's what I think makes our experience really important and really bring forward that experience that we have because we know that we can help these younger members.
I totally agree. It's the passing down of those things that really keep the train rolling along on the tracks, in my opinion. Um,
Exactly.
that's a big part of it.
And so you and I have had a lot of conversations about sports, our kiddos playing sports, the highs, the lows, the frustration, the we just went over this. "Yeah, they're making this mistake," or, "She did great," and, it's such a happy moment. You've been a coach for softball, baseball. What do you think makes you somebody who is able to coach kids in sports?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough out of high school. I played minor league baseball for 6 years, and I had every different type of coach you could possibly have. In 1999, I had a pitching coach and our manager, this guy Dave Engel and this guy Mickey Weston, who were two of the most influential coaches I've ever had in my life. And what now and then I got done with baseball and I coached high school baseball, and then I went to the kids and I went back to high school, and I look back on those two guys, and what really was the most impactful is that I wanted to play hard for them. I wanted to perform to make them happy. And they didn't do anything to make me feel like I needed to do that. But what they did do without knowing is they supported everybody on our team. And we felt like we mattered. I think there's so much value in making kids understand that they're important. And
Mm.
that's the top of the lineup to the last kid on the bench. I think if you make kids understand that they're valued, that's how you get the most out of kids.
Ooh,
The,
love
day,
that.
the days of screaming and yelling and getting the message across, those days are gone. They don't work anymore. And I've been coaching the last 5 years, high school baseball, and you start to see that it just becomes noise to these kids, and it's not
Yeah.
getting a message across. There's more value in walking up and asking a kid, "How was your weekend? What'd you have
Mm.
for breakfast? How's your
Yeah.
family doing?"
Yeah.
Something that is not even related to the sport that you're playing in, just so that they know that you care. That really, truly, to me, is the most important thing that you can do as a coach in today's world. I grew up with hard-nosed coaches that I feared, absolutely feared,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
still fear them when I see them.
Yeah.
At
Still
48,
get those
I fear
feelings.
them. Yes. Um, and I never felt that with my dad, which is important. He was, raised in the valley. His dad was not present. Barely saw him play any sports, and I feel like my dad was always present, and always. There were times we got into it for sure, but I felt like
Yeah.
he was always present. He was always there, and he always cared. And he was always there to help me in whatever it was, basketball, baseball, football, whatever sport I was in. Um, so I really think the most important thing in today's world is just support the kids, make sure they know that you care about them. And believe me, I get into my guys every once in a while. But if I get into my guys, it's because I mean it. It's not because I'm always yelling. Um,
Yeah.
it's because there's a reason for it. And I think that, you know, guys, players will respond better to that than just a screamer or a yeller, because it's not the
Yeah.
world we live in anymore.
It just becomes white noise after a while.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Man, I've come a long way coaching. I haven't coached at the level or played at the level that you did, but coaching my kids, especially my oldest, I was very hard on her. And she's still young, man. So this just goes to show you that I was pushing at 8, 9, 10 years old. And I've talked to you about this, and I've done a complete 180 on pushing and having these really, really high expectations because the sport is not about me. This is not me playing. This is her enjoyment. This is her journey. This is her process. And for some dads, I know that it comes at a different time. You realize that hopefully in time, or maybe you don't realize it, but for me, it hit me one day where I was like, dude, this is not about me. But I had to do the deep work, man. I had to really understand, and I had to really get, vulnerable. Like, dude, I'm making this about me, and I'm totally wrong here. And once I made that switch, the kiddo responded so well. And she's doing great. She enjoys it. That's the most important thing is that we now have this relationship regardless of how you do. Cool. Did you have fun? And did you enjoy yourself? And what do you want to go eat? You want to go eat In and Out, whatever you want. And the car ride home is not awkward. It's not me just talking about, hey, didn't we go over this and didn't we go over that? It's just super, super simple.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I know, to refer back to my dad, who was still very close with him and talked all the time. My oldest daughter was a softball player, and my middle daughter was softball players. And hard on my oldest one, pitching, 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 backyard lessons all over, hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
And the reality was, she wasn't going to be that kid. I had it in my head. She can do it. She can do it. And I remember I got really, really fired up, and like, at the time they weren't young, but they are so young. I think it was in a 12U softball game, and she had a
Yeah.
bad night. I was hot. I mean, my dad called me that night and goes, "Hey Tim, I think you need to realize that she's not going to be the pitcher that you want her to be, and that's okay."
Yeah.
And from that moment, everything flipped because I was hard on my middle daughter. Quit playing softball because she said I was too hard on her. She went soccer only. My oldest daughter stuck it out, but it was me having to realize, like, oh, this is supposed to be fun for these kids. It
Yeah.
shouldn't feel like a job. I should be her dad and not this finger pointing of what you did wrong. And it was a full 180 in literally one day of my
Yeah.
dad having to call me out. And he was right. He was 100% right. And ever since then, I changed completely.
Man. Yeah, I don't know the exact moment for me, but I have the exact story where it was like, it's just not about you. It's not about you pointing the finger. It's not about it's not your journey. Just
Yeah.
allow her to enjoy the process of growing, of being a good teammate, of all the wonderful things that sports have to offer these kids, rather than it being about stats, comparison, or making all the plays all the time. And yeah, so I've definitely changed that. I have a younger middle daughter that love softball, love soccer, and I feel this like huge relief when I coach her because I don't have any expectations. I'm just out there coaching her, enjoying the time. She loves dancing. I'll dance with her, and that's really what she wants to do. That's the most important thing is just having fun. And so if they're having fun and we're spending the time together, that's all that truly matters. But it doesn't, it takes time to realize that. At least for me, it did.
Yeah, I screwed it up, and I wouldn't say I regret it because I, changed and became a better coach and probably dad, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The one, it was funny because the one thing I've enjoyed is my older one went into volleyball only. I never played volleyball. So for me, I was just a fan. My
Yeah.
middle one went into soccer only. I never played soccer, so I was just a fan. I just enjoyed being there. And then, my
Yeah.
son is football and baseball. So, but he got the best of it because I got to screw it up first with his older sisters. And then
Mm.
if you go ask him, he's like, "Oh yeah, my dad always supports me. He's never hard on me. Never really good." Like, because I learned that I
Yeah.
screwed it up. And like in our house, we have kind of two sayings that I kind of just get in there every once in a while with the kids. And the first one is, how good of an athlete do you want to be? They're older now. We've done all the work. We've put in the time. It's really up to them now of how much extra effort do you want to put in? How
Yeah.
much time do you want to put in? How good do you want to be? And it goes for everything. How good of an employee do you want to be? How good of
Yeah.
a student do you want to be? How good of
Yeah.
a My older one's going to nursing to be a nurse. So how good of a nurse do you want to be? All those, it kind of is up to the individual. We can support and provide guidance and be there for them, but it's really those self-starter and the self-motivated person that's going to succeed, and that's been a huge thing in our house. I think the kids kind of go like, okay, I get it. I gotta go do extra work, but
Yeah.
they do it, and they're starting to do it on their own, which is huge.
Yeah. It takes a little bit to understand that. And yeah, maybe we screwed it up, but it's also a learning lesson for us because we're going through this the first time also. This is their first time playing. This is my first time being a dad and coaching, and everybody comes out better as long as you can do that deep work and really understand that what's the actual goal here. So what would you tell dads who maybe this is sparking a little bit of some insight? Oh man, maybe I am pushing a little too hard. Maybe I am making this about me. What would you tell them?
You know, I coached a team a few years back, and I had heard little rumors about there's a baseball team. I think it was seventh grade, sixth or seventh graders. Heard little rumors about, oh, this parent's hard, this parent's tough, this parent's tough. But I've coached a lot of kids and dealt with a lot of parents over the last 25 years. So it is what it is. It comes with the territory. And there's a thing called the Matheny Manifesto. I don't know if you ever read it before, but it's
Oh,
brilliant in my opinion. And it's Mike Matheny was the old catcher for the Cardinals,
yeah.
and he coached his son's baseball team, and he wrote this thing, and it basically breaks down the problem parent in sports, and
Ooh,
it basically makes you question: Are you the problem? Um, so before the season, I
I got to read
emailed.
this.
It's great, and I emailed the team the Matheny Manifesto, and you can get into it as far as you want. There's a couple things about religion and all kinds of stuff, but the basis of it is: Are you the problem? And it makes people question themselves.
Ooh, ooh,
Like,
ooh, ooh.
am I the guy who's at practice constantly nagging my kid in the corner and then getting in the car and then I'm nagging my kid again and then when we get home I'm talking about it? The basis of his thing is just be their biggest fan. Be their biggest fan. Because unfortunately, I've seen so many kids that it's done right with where they don't feel the pressure from the parents, and the pressure and it's simple, and they get to go home and have fun and enjoy their time as a kid at their house with their parents. But I've also seen a few where it feels like a job, and they feel the pressure and they feel the stress and they feel it over and over and over again. And those are the kids you feel for. Those are the kids that I gravitate to more because I know that they need that. I like those kids because I know that they need support and they need to know that we care about them as coaches. Um, and you know that really to me is it kind of changed me also how I parent is when my kids get out of the car, when my daughter goes play soccer, my son's football and baseball, I say real simple: do your best and have fun. That's it. That's all they're going to hear from me. And like you were saying on the car ride home, there's no long conversations. If they want to engage in conversation about games, go for it. If they want to talk about what they did or didn't do, go for it. But I think the biggest thing is for any parent, just be their biggest fan because they're going to put pressure on themselves. They're going to have pressure from their coaches. They're going to have pressure from their teammates. What you can do as a parent, just be their biggest fan. That's it. That's the most
Yeah,
important job you have as a sports parent. Because if it goes the other way, they might never want to play the sport again. And I've seen that
yeah.
unfortunately. I remember specifically I had two kids that you could tell they weren't loving baseball anymore. And it came down to me saying, "Hey, if you want us to cut you because you don't want to tell your parents you want to quit, we'll cut you." And both of them the next day said, "Yep, we don't want to play anymore." I said, "Hey, appreciate you. I've had a great time with you. We're going to cut you." And it was easy for them because they just went to their parents and said, "Hey, I got cut," versus just saying, "Mom and Dad, I don't want to play anymore," which is sad, really. It's sad.
It is sad, man, and it's unfortunate, but it's real. That is really happening, and kiddos, they're so young, man. They're so young, and us having a little bit more life experience, we need to understand that. I need to understand that. And I went through this Matheny Manifesto, but I didn't read the book.
Right.
But I'm definitely going to read the book.
Got to check it out.
I uh, I went through my own, I guess, a version of that, and dude, yeah, I don't know how I came to the conclusion of what you're saying, but I felt like yes, I am the problem. I am the biggest problem here. And once I realized that, like I said, it changed dramatically. But that requires deep work, man. So you mentioned your kiddos. Your oldest is a senior. Your middle one is a sophomore,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then you got a freshman.
yep,
I see that your oldest is going to Arizona nursing, right?
yep.
And then your other kiddo's crushing it in soccer. Your son's crushing it in football. Dude, how proud of a dad are you, man? That is awesome.
Yeah, it's been a fun little ride here the last few years. It's you just try to support them and be the best parent you can be, and guide them on a path to success. And my oldest daughter has just been a rock star with education, grades, volunteering at the hospital, part-time job. Did so much to put herself in a position to uh, get accepted to a nursing school that she wanted. So she put in a ton of effort, tons and tons of effort, and understood the importance of all those things. And my wife is fantastic. I don't do much of the education side, as my wife being a teacher. I kind of leave that up to her, and she's set all my kids on a great path to success, with summer school and all that stuff to get them to a point where they're in the best position they can be in for what's next.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's definitely a test to you guys, your parenting style and all of the hard work that you guys put in. I remember as I came on, your kiddos were young. Your kiddos are like my kiddos right now.
Right, right.
So you're just a few years ahead, and I can see like, oh my gosh, it is happening for this guy, and that's gonna be me very soon. And my wife and I, and kind of the same deal with my wife. She puts a very high emphasis on the school, and she does a great job. I help out as much as I can, but dude, I was not a great student.
Me neither.
They they'll ask me these algebra questions and all this stuff. I'm like, refer to mom. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I'm the same way. I was not a good student, and it wasn't because I think there's certain things that sparked my interest,
Yeah,
but as a whole, I just didn't put the effort in.
yeah.
That was the
Same,
biggest thing
same
for
with
me.
me.
My effort wasn't there. I just did the bare minimum to get by, graduate. I was like, oh, well, I'm going to go play baseball in college anyways, so well, I don't need to do any more. So there's a lack of
Yeah,
effort on my part, really. Um,
yeah.
and it, fortunately, my wife is the exact opposite. Was a hard worker, still a hard worker, and has guided them on a path to the value of education. We've seen it, like with my older daughter. Some people don't value the high school education or whatever it is, but then I see how much scholarship money she gets just from her grades alone.
Yeah.
So there's a huge value in the education piece for sure. It's highly competitive, so the more valuable you are, the more better classes you take and the higher GPA you have, and all those things definitely matter if you want to go to a 4-year school, without a doubt.
Shout out to the wives, the
100%.
fire wives who hold it down while we work, 24, 48, 72, whatever schedules that we work. They're at home putting in, their own work on their own jobs, their own businesses, and then putting in the work with the kiddos. It's not easy, man. If you spend a 4 day at home and you see the chaos of family life, by that third or fourth day, you're like, oh my gosh, I am worn out.
Oh yeah.
And this is what they do every day.
Yep. My two older ones drive now, which has obviously helped out a lot. They drive themselves to school. They drive themselves to practice. On the other side of that, now my insurance bill is huge, but I've been gone since I got home this morning at 7 o'clock with my son doing a couple things. So it never ends. It's like
Yeah.
I always joke, like I drive myself to work. I drive people around at work, and then I come home and I drive people around. It's just constant. It's all the time.
All the time. So, like I said, shout out to the wives and the families that are putting it all together.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't work without them. It really
No.
doesn't. I can't tell you how many times I'm sure you're the same. It's like I text my wife, "Hey, I got force tomorrow." Okay,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
okay,
Yep.
we'll figure it out.
exactly.
That's how it
So,
goes.
yeah. So, Tim, we've we've had some conversations about the online stuff and the social media stuff. And I told you my story. I was so against social media. I was so silly. All of this stuff is funny stuff. Like, I am not into it. And then obviously I've changed my opinion on that,
Yeah.
and I'm starting to build something here. But I see it in you. I see you can make this thing work. Maybe like a baseball firefighter brand. What's brewing? What's behind the scenes for Mr. Tim Carr here?
I don't know. It's very intriguing to me. It started out with me. I love listening to. I remember a guy we worked with who retired, chief who was a Navy SEAL, sent me a David Goggins on Joe Rogan, and it was like
Mhm.
mind blowing to me. I was like, this is so cool because it's just a
Yeah,
conversation. And
yeah,
then you start to get into podcasts a little bit. Then you get into Instagram. Then you get into TikTok, and you're starting to see there's a lot of trash out there for sure, but there's
hmm,
also a ton of people providing value.
yeah,
Um, and whether it's education, sports, music, movies, fire department, there's so many good people out there. So I've always been very intrigued by it. And then I started to see what you were doing. I'm like, that's kind of cool. It all comes down to like, it's not me that matters. It's the people find me interesting or whatever, find
yeah,
the person who's doing it interesting. So it's something that I'll continue to think about and talk to you about and pick your brain because I think it's super cool. And I have, in my opinion, I have some cool life experience with baseball into the fire department and coaching a lot and raising kids through sports. And so it's definitely interesting to me. I'll say that much.
man. I will say at first it's a little nerve wracking because you're like, why would anybody want to listen to me? Why would anybody find me interesting? And then you start talking, and then you start to reveal your experiences, and then you see that you have experiences that are impactful and that a lot of people can relate to.
Hmm.
After 49 years of life on this planet, you have plenty of life experience and plenty of perspectives that I feel have people that are interested in. So I'm going to continue to poke you in the direction of, hey, share your story, man. I know you got a awesome story. We didn't even get into the pro baseball career, all of the ups and downs that come with that. That is
Yeah,
huge,
there's a lot of stories for sure. There's a lot of
right?
stories, a lot of bus rides, a lot of stories, a lot of
The
little
bus
towns.
rides, all that stuff, man. And I think it's super unique and helpful because everybody has their own life angle. And the more you live and the more you experience, the more you actually have to give. And you can serve people that, um, maybe are going through some struggles. And then they find that, hey, Tim went through the same struggle and he persevered and he made it out and he's doing great things now. um, there was this thing for me where I thought, well, social media is just influencers, followers, and silly stuff. And like you touched on, there is that aspect of it, but there's also the people that will get you up in the morning. Oh, I just saw this reel from this person that I follow. He gets up and he just does the work. He's got a family just like me. He's got the same struggles, and I'm going to get up and I'm going to do whatever, positive thing that he said to do. And I think that if you're sending a positive message and if you're not hurting anybody and if you're out there helping, sheesh, I think social media is a wonderful thing. So,
Yeah, there's a guy. The first kind of guy I saw that was interesting on Instagram was a guy named Jake Savicki, who's a baseball coach out of San Diego, and he started doing just some little things with just little kind of blips of comedy almost, um,
yeah,
hilarious. But then you started to see like he was providing a lot of good information. He had some
yeah,
emotional stories about people that he ran across. Coached, played college baseball, played, coached at a high level, high school baseball, and that was the first part. I was like, he's pretty entertaining, pretty funny, provides information with a good background. I wonder if I could do that, you know?
Yeah.
And he was the first one I saw. I was like, this is kind of cool. And then you started getting into, there's a podcast that this guy Jeff Francoeur, who played for the Braves, does called Pure Athlete, and it's just talking about being a parent. Or Greg Olson has a great one. It's about being a parent and being a coach, and like just a lot of good info. Um, there's so many about college and what you expect from college experience and what college coaches are looking for. So there's so many avenues that you're just providing information, and it's a lot of the stuff that I feel like even as a coach, I don't know how you feel as a coach. I'm not making up a lot of this stuff. I'm passing along the good information that I got along the way.
Yeah.
It's the relationship that you build is an important part, but the information that we're just passing along stuff that helped us as young athletes or young firefighters or whatever it might be, or young parent.
Yeah. Yeah, and something that because we do it every day, we think it's just normal, but the firefighter perspective is so unique to so many people, but to us, because we're just in it and this is just what we see every day, it's like, oh, that's interesting. Like, no, like that's just what I do. But to the rest of the world and to people who don't know the fire department or know the life, man, that's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool angle. So having the baseball, the coaching, the firefighter, all of these things, man, you got a good package there, man.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see
So
if people like this podcast, and then we'll go from there, right? I mean, that's the
yeah, man.
test.
Yeah, it's an awesome thing. Well, Tim, we are almost at an hour, I think. Dude, time flies when you are having fun. Where can people find you, Tim?
Instagram, that's about it. Tim 44 car, CARR, pretty simple.
Only Instagram right now.
Yeah, right now, for now,
Just for
for
now.
now.
Brother, so cool talking to you. Thank you for coming on. And for everybody, I hope that you found this episode helpful. If you can take a nugget or two, that would be awesome. I'm very, very thankful for you guys listening, tuning into the podcast. If you found it interesting, consider subscribing to the podcast and help it all grow so I can get more cool guests on here. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. God bless.